Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're looking at the Whisper of the Old Gods new expansion. We're looking at all the cards. So today we need to look at, well today, gosh, it's for this video we need to look at Warlock. So go into crafting mode, click this button because I like it, and then click over here and click on the Old Gods. And now we can see just the Old Gods cards for the new expansion. Well, the new expansion called Whisper of the Old Gods cards, all of them, and see what Warlock has to offer. So, first card we have is a 0 mana spell called Forbidden Ritual. Spend all your mana, summon that many 1/1 tentacles. So, we've seen almost every character has a 0 mana spell that spends all your mana and does something else. This one summons 1/1 tentacles. And I wonder if at some point there's going to be spells that say give tentacles +1/+1 or something like that, since we've seen that keyword used several places. But I've yet to see it, and I don't think it's going to happen in this expansion, because they've yet to get that tricky in Hearthstone. They're still trying to keep everything mostly simple. But is this worth it? Well, there is one limit on this card, in that you could only really play it on the 7th turn or use 7 mana, because if you did any more than 7 you would fill up your board because you can only have 7 minions. So on the 8th, 9th, and 10th turn this is kind of not as useful as you would think, and even on the 7th turn it's not so great. It's kind of expensive for what it does. Hard to fix that because it's 0 mana, but it really kind of is expensive. On your first turn, it's a 1 mana to summon a 1/1 tentacle. That's kind of expensive. On the 7th turn, it would be a 7 mana to summon 7 1/1 tentacles. That's kind of expensive too, because other spells have done similar things like that for 6 mana. So I'd say no good on that card. I wouldn't play it. Although it is a Warlock, so you may not you may not have many better options. Next card we have is a 1 mana, 1 attack, 1 health creature called the Possessed Villager. Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 Shadow Beast. Is a Shadow Beast the one that dies and then has a Death Rattle to bring it back to life? I don't think so. But if it is, that would be awesome. That would be way too overpowered. Well, either way, this is actually a super powerful card, because even though it's doing it in a strange way, you're effectively for 1 mana getting a 2/2 creature, which is more powerful than every other 1 mana card we've seen. So I'd play with that. Next card we have is a 2 mana, 3 attack, 2 health creature called the Darkshire Librarian. Battle Cry, discard a random card. Death Rattle, draw a card. Let's see. I don't think those are effectively the same things. Discarding a card gets it removed from play for all time. Drawing a card just gets it in your hand. So, for those 2 reasons, the Battle Cry and the Death Rattle, I wouldn't play this. But I probably would play this since the Warlock is kind of low on characters that he can play, and a 2 mana 3/2 is pretty good. Anyways, next card we have is a 2 mana spell called Renounce Darkness. Replace your hero's power and Warlock cards with another class's. The cards cost 1 less. What? Wow. This is an amazing card. It's random as all get out. And I don't know if you're gonna just get a random class here or if you get to pick, but so I'd like to see how this plays. But I think it effectively is saying all your cards would cost one less then. On the second turn you could just stop being a Warlock, turn the tables on a player. If you were playing in a tournament, I'm sure that would drive somebody crazy where they think they're playing against a Warlock deck and then all of a sudden it just changes and gets cheaper. Overpowered this card is. Super powered. I would definitely play that card just to see what it does and how it works. But probably still play it after that point too. Next card we have is a 3 mana, 1 attack, 5 health creature called the Darkshire Councilman. After you summon a minion, gain plus 1 attack. Let's see. Well, if you summoned this on the 3rd turn, it would probably get destroyed on the 4th turn. At least it has a decent chance of that. So, even if it survived 1 turn and was a 1-1 at that point, then on the 4th turn you could at most play 4 1-1 creatures, get this up, and then it would be a 5-1. And that's the best case scenario, would be these two numbers would flip, and then you could do 1 attack and then it would die. Well, this card is interesting. I think when you run the numbers, it's actually not any good. Next card we have is a 3 mana spell called Spreading Madness. Deal 9 damage, randomly split among all characters. This is a gambling card, but I would definitely play it as a bad Hearthstone player. As somebody who isn't playing tournament play, who would never play things that are random, because tournament players don't play random cards. That doesn't make any sense. But for me, for new players, for average players, this is a crazy gamble, but it would work with other Warlock cards rather well. It would potentially do a lot of damage. For 6 mana, you might do 18 damage to your opponent if you just got really lucky. So I'd play that. That's the most damage I think I've seen a card by default doing. Also, there is a card that I think Pyroblast does 10, and there is a danger of a mage somehow getting their hands on this card and then getting spell damage up. This thing could get up to 30. Same way that Pyroblast could, but it wouldn't even have to, because if you got a couple copies of this card as a mage, which is possible, and then you could play 2 of these for 6 mana and with spell damage get it well over 30. Anyways, next card we have is a 5 mana, 5 attack, 6 health creature called Usher of Souls. Whenever a friendly minion dies, give your Cthulhu +1/+1. It's actually quite surprising there aren't more cards that do that, and it's just your Warlock. I would think there would be a card that would give Cthulhu +1/+1 every time any minion dies, but we haven't seen that. So overall, this is a good card by itself. It's 5 attack for 5 mana and 6 health for 5 mana, so it's already pretty good. Definitely play this in a Cthulhu deck. Almost maybe play it in a non-Cthulhu deck too. Next card we have is a 7 mana, 7 attack, 7 health legendary creature called Cho'Gall. It has a battle cry. The next spell you cast this turn costs health instead of mana. Interesting. So I had speculated that maybe in a couple years they would come out with a card that said something like this, where it's like, instead of spending mana, you have to spend health to cast a spell. And I had just talked about this in like uh, either the recording before this one or the recording before this one. They're starting to blend together as I fast and furiously record them. Uh, so very, very interesting here. You could do some crazy stuff with that, although it's just the next spell you cast. So if you did Pyroblast, somehow had that 10 mana spell, you could pay 10 health to do it, and that's the most expensive spell they've ever made, because I guess just because we haven't seen any spell cards that reduce their cost that are also above 10. Uh, have we seen any spell cards that reduce their cost at all? Maybe. It's hard to remember. Anyways, though, this is 777, so there's nothing wrong with this card. Anyways, I'd play it just for its strength. And then finally we have Doom, the spell Doom for 10 mana. Destroy all minions, draw a card for each. That's not too bad. It's really, really expensive, but you do get to potentially draw 14 cards there, but you can only have 10 in your deck, and it would only be 14 if there was 7 minions on your opponent's side and 7 minions on your side. I'd like to actually see how often this plays out to your favor, because it may actually just be too expensive to ever actually work. I think I'd leave it out of my decks. You could probably find something better. Anywho, next recording we will cover the warrior, and then I will be done and I can finally go to sleep. I'm looking forward to that. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment if you want to, and watch every second of my videos. All of that helps out. If you want to support me, you can click on my name, Rydo. On the right will be a blue button that says support this channel. Click it, make a donation. And if you want to friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.